Hello viewers, welcome to Surviving the Storm, episode number 3. This one is on intelligence and communications. When the power goes out, usually you have a good idea of why. You've been watching it snow for the past 6 hours and then the lights go out. Or you knew a storm or tornado was coming through. But unfortunately, in this day and age, there's a few other reasons. If you live in the States, some of your power distribution centers have had some nefarious activity, which has caused power outages for many. And when it first happens, you don't always know why. So this is a communication grid that will run off-grid, doesn't require any electricity from the city or anything like that. It is completely self-sufficient, solar-powered, and redundant. Some of the frequencies I'll listen to in a power outage to obtain information or gather size and scope will be down here. That is the local airport, as well as this one here, another airport frequency. What this is going to allow me to do is assess air traffic. If the airports are landing planes as fast as they can, that's probably a good reason you should become concerned, because they don't do that often. If they're diverting flights to other airports, you can ascertain the size and scope of the power outage or damaged area around you by understanding where those airports are, because they're going to divert those flights to airports that have normal services working. In Canada, our police force, local, provincial, municipal, they all run a digital radio service, and they are encrypted, so you can't just listen in to your local public police force and understand what's going on. They've made changes that takes that away from us, unfortunately. So what this station is able to do is monitor multiple frequencies, everything from your AM/FM broadcast band to citizen band to the amateur radio band. A couple of these radios, such as this one here, has a digital protocol in it where I can get on a local repeater connected to the internet, and it's on like a global chat site, I guess would be a way to explain it. This radio here is doing exactly the same thing. It's just using a different digital protocol. These repeaters may or may not be working in a power outage. This radio here is currently listening in on channel 28 of the Citizen Band radio. It's a frequency I'm able to receive, but one that this particular radio will not transmit on. It can be easily made to transmit on it. I just haven't found a reason to do it yet. But so I'm living in Canada, in Calgary, Alberta, and that radio frequency is coming in from the US. So during a good solar cycle, like what we're currently having, it's quite common you can use the Citizen Band radio to obtain information from a long ways away or relay information from a long ways away. In addition to this, you're going to want a way to keep your equipment powered up, and I've come up with a few ideas for that. This box has USB installed, which allows me to recharge 18650 cells. These are a good option because you can find them in everything like batteries from DeWalt drills and other drill companies. They've just become so prevalent over recent time. So what I did to keep these radios running, this one And this one, it'll also work on your IC705. This is pretty much what you're looking at is the battery. You can see how skinny it is. It really doesn't hold a whole lot of power at all. This particular battery only holds 8.2 watt hours. And if you're using the APRS and GPS functions that this radio and this radio are capable of, you'll deplete this battery in about 4 to 6 hours. And then what do? Well, if you look at some of my previous videos, I have a DYI power. That's what this monstrosity is. It's a backup. This battery pack does very much fit these radios. It's powered by 18650 cells. I can charge them faster than I deplete them. It can also be run off of a 9-volt battery, or you can drain 9-volt batteries to recharge these cells in the box. So this was kind of an afterthought. You know, when the lights go out, how do you keep your communications equipment going? This was my answer. In addition to that, I've got some other batteries just sitting on a charge. All of the lighting in this corner of my basement, all of these plug-ins here, it all runs through this power inverter there, off of that charge controller. And that's a 320 amp hour LiPo 4 battery. It doesn't store enough power for what I want. I do have to get a couple of more. But for right now, I'm running all of this power. I have been running it for several hours in the basement here. This is like take 3 or 4 of the video. This battery is currently full. And all of the power we're using is coming directly off my solar panels. The charge controller, you can tell the batteries are topped right up. And it is, it's got power to spare. I can actually produce more than what I use. This will be a pure sine wave power inverter. Modified sine wave and digital sine wave are not a clean source of power. This is not the cleanest either, but it's far cleaner than modified and digital, so that's why I went with that. Some of the frequencies you're going to want to listen to in addition to the airport are going to be regional. If you live in the US, a lot of the emergency services, fire department, ambulance, and police, you can pick up on a simple radio like this. It's not a bad idea. In Canada, these radios won't give you that because, as I mentioned earlier, the party poopers have moved on to digitally secured frequencies. However, regionally speaking, and you'll have to do your research for your own region, this one here is currently monitoring the Alberta wide frequency set. There are 6 frequencies for Alberta. They're open to public. A lot of highway transport trucks are going to have them. And if roads are closed and things like that, this one will give you information on that. You'll be able, you know, truckers, they run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, everywhere. During vacation, it never stops for them. And when the roads aren't going the way they need, they're going to talk about it on the radio. You'll be able to receive that and better understand your situational awareness. In Western Canada, Alberta, British Columbia, Yukon territories, and I believe Alaska as well, there's LADs 1 through 4. Pretty much the same thing as the Alberta 6 Open, just a different frequency and another option. And then here we have GMRS and FRS. Now, with this, it's definitely regional. If you live in Canada, Don't waste your money on the blister pack GMRS FRS radio setup in Canada. It will never give you better than a block and a half or so of range. You're not going to obtain usable information. It is not a good way to spend your $120. But if you live in the United States of America, you guys down there enjoy more freedom. So you're allowed to use external antennas, a greater amount of power, repeaters. It's a far better system in the United States. So if you're in the US, programming in your GMRS and your FRS stations is an absolute great idea. If you live in Canada, it really loses its luster. I'll put it that way. So I think we've about covered and touched most of what I wanted to cover. Listening to your airport is going to give you a good idea of your surroundings. Listening to air traffic control. If it's a bad storm, a lot of those airplanes fly above the storm. They're looking down on it and they talk about it. Being able to receive and interpolate that information is an absolute benefit to your position. In addition, you really, really want the capacity to listen into amateur radio stations, because I have yet to meet an amateur radio operator that does not have a plan for operating their radio during all kinds of disaster and grid down. In disasters and grid down situations, amateur radio operators will undoubtedly come together. They'll set up all kinds of listening posts, talking posts, information transfers. You can get messages to and from with emergency services, and a lot of other sort of behind the scenes disaster coordination. This particular radio, I'm using the Chameleon MPass 2.0 antenna mounted externally. That's an okay antenna. It does have its losses, but for the purposes I need it for, it's just fine. That'll allow me to operate any band or anywhere in the spectrum I need with an efficient signal. It's not the most efficient, but it's certainly usable, and I will get the signal out when I need to. This other radio has built-in GMRS, it's got built-in GPS, and it also does the APRS beaconing. This is my, it's mounted at home at all times for monitoring purposes, and right now it's just monitoring a local repeater. Aside from that, I think I covered most of what I wanted to. The ability to keep your handhelds charged in case somebody has to go on a bit of a journey, gather supplies, go look for medical help or anything like that. You're going to want to be able to communicate with them. You're going to want to have a communications plan, and you need to be able to keep it powered, especially if your electricity is going to be out for, I think 7 to 21 days is what we were talking about. And this system will absolutely do that. It's a standalone field box meant to go camping or what have you. And it is solar acceptable. It has a 20 amp charge controller in it, MPPT charge controller. So I can take this into the field pretty much anywhere with its antenna, set it up, and be able to activate a wide variety of frequencies. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching. I hope you found some of this inspiring or informative. Go ahead and watch my other videos if you enjoyed it. If not, well, thank you for watching. Have a great